This week, we are at the halfway mark of the IPL. It sounds remarkable to even say that, given that life is still not back to a pre-COVID normal in so many spheres. The IPL viewership has come as a big boost for television that was already seeing a revival thanks to the lockdown. So what has it been like to see the IPL conducted at close quarters inside a biosecure bubble? How are the players coping with empty stands? How are advertisers getting their money's worth? And how are fans connecting with it all? My guest today is going to take all those questions and more on the front foot. Please welcome commentator, anchor and astute observer of the zeitgeist, Harsha Bhogle. He's a man I admire quite a lot. Harsha, thank you so much for joining us from Abu Dhabi.
Thank you, Anuradha.
Have you got used to being part of this biosecure bubble? Is it all routine now?
It's very strict, the quarantine here. You can't to go anywhere. Luckily, this is a beachfront hotel, so they've given us a little corner of the beach to go out to walk in. But you cannot order food from outside. You cannot go anywhere. No, it's hotel, car, ground, car, back, and a COVID test every 4 or 5 days.
Wow. Hotel, car, ground and back and a COVID test. What about interacting with people around? And by that I mean, the broadcasting crews, I mean the players themselves and of course your fellow commentators.
It seems a utopian world, interacting with players. So the players come to the ground. Say it's a local time 6 o'clock start. So the players probably come in about 4:15. We have to finish all our work before 4:15, including the pitch reports. Everything has to be done before the players come on. As soon as the players come on, the commentators have to leave the field. The interaction is when you're 2 meters away at the toss or when you're 2 meters away at the post-match presentation, but no member of the commentary crew will be on the ground once the players come in and begin their warm-ups. So we go to the ground much earlier, because you have to finish the pitch reports and everything before they come in. So no, absolutely no interaction with the players other than through 2-3 meter distances. Occasionally when you meet before and after the presentation, but that is it, because they're in a different bubble. They're in a different bubble and we are in a different bubble. So we can't. The bubbles cannot merge. So we have to keep that. It's okay. You get used to it. I mean, even the pre-match interviews that we do now, the players are in a zone where they hear the broadcaster's voice or speaker. They speak into a camera. We are in the commentary box, and that's how the pre-game interviews are done.
You say that you're used to it. Are you really? I know that some time has passed. We are at the halfway mark in the tournament this week. Have you really gotten used to this? Do you see yourselves and people around you forget about these restrictions, or can you not forget? Are they always looming large over you?
No, you can't think about it, because if you think about it, you're aware of the restrictions. So in your mind, you've got to tell yourself that this is how it is and accept things as they used to be. When we were growing up, we were always told, look, this is the family income, or this is what time the bus comes in. This is how many clothes used in a year. And those were givens for us, and we learned to live within those givens.
You are speaking about living within certain givens, and that sounds like you're talking about your generation and about our generation. What about all these youngster cricketers who are out there who have no idea of what it is like to live within certain constraints, of the kind you're mentioning?
But you have to get used to it. What the franchises are doing really well is to ensure that there's a lot of activity going on. Some players got family with them, so they had to come in and do the quarantine like the players did as well. They probably got bigger rooms. The good thing about the IPL is that budgets are not an issue. Spend on keeping the players happy. I mean, there's that video of Delhi Capitals that's doing the round where they called everyone in supposedly for a team meeting and actually played them from the families of every player around the world, wherever they were. So franchises are actually pretty good at doing the best they can within this. That is the reality. I mean, some of these boys are now going to go to Australia and they're going to live in a bubble there in Australia as well. And it's not going to be like it is with a franchise. Franchise is for you. Hotel staff with all our, with largely Indian, Pakistani, Sri Lankan, Asian staff, they pamper you. Where else? That's not going to happen. So if anything, they're going to have to get used to it when they go to Australia.
Quick question on what the tournament has thrown up on the field. Like I said, we are at the halfway mark. We saw this week begin with Chennai Super Kings putting in a victory. So are you seeing exciting things? What are the headlines that are leaping out at you from on the ground this year?
You know, it's interesting. This game is so beautiful, Anuradha, that you can never predict what this game is going to be. All our projections before the tournament started were slow tracks, 50, 160 games. Guess what? We come here, there's grass. The best bowlers have been the fast bowlers who are bowling test match lengths. They're not having to bowl wide curves or slower, loopy balls. They are coming in bowling quick. Which are the two best teams? Nokia and Rabada for Delhi Capitals, and Bolt, Pattinson and Mumbai Indians. And they're coming in, they're bowling quick, they're bowling 140 plus. It's only halfway into the tournament that the pitches are showing first signs of drop, of getting tired and spin coming along a little bit. But otherwise, the cricket's been completely different from what we thought it would be. The cricket's actually been refreshing good. So we've not missed that. I'll tell you something interesting that's happened. We've not missed the crowd. Maybe it's because of the ambient sound that's generated on the telecast through recordings or whatever, but we have not missed the crowds as broadcasters, and that is a big learning for me.
So that's good design, and kudos to the Star team in terms of the sound design that they've created to sort of replicate real live audiences and people in the grounds and stands.
Anuradha, the real stars of every live telecast are the engineering staff, the sound video. They are the real stars. They put it together. So the amount of time they have spent in trying to replicate a match audio is the amount of the depths to which they've gone to create a match audio. Sometimes you might look at it at home and say, but there's nobody in the crowd. Why are we hearing these sounds? You have to do that. Otherwise, it becomes a very hollow, empty kind of sound. So they've done that. For us, because the cameras are powerful, we're focusing on cricket. I mean, when I say we are not missing the crowd reactions are always very interesting. Of course. We miss is entering the ground, seeing the buzz around the ground. I mean, go to Bangalore or Mumbai or Chennai, and the buzz around the ground is like nothing you have seen before. And that is part of the fun of the IPL. So yes, once the game starts, it's been fantastic.
This year, 2020, the fact that an IPL is being conducted in a COVID-19 world, it's almost cathartic. Would you agree if I describe it as cathartic?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Even for people like us, we're enjoying watching cricket. We're enjoying these players in the world go hard at each other. But if you're sitting at home, what are you watching? Largely you're locked in your room, you're going out somewhere and you're coming back and you're stuck with watching, dare I say it myself, you're stuck to watching a lot of unpalatable stuff where people are going at each other and suddenly you're seeing the pure sport. And sport is the most beautiful force of our time because it's largely pure. It's a content on one. At the end, people say hello. They don't shake hands anymore. They have a little fist bump. But yes, you're getting that kind of pure activity rather than what they listen in the evening. So yeah, from that point of view, it's been beautiful.
So, when I have some BARC data on the kind of viewership that IPL is seeing, we saw opening week watched by 269 million viewers, 15% growth in viewing minutes over last year, 11 million more. I mean, there are lots of statistics. I'm running them as I speak to you. The question is, these numbers, this kind of boost that the IPL has provided people and television as a medium, do you see this as being something that is that's going to be helpful to TV in the long run overall? I don't mean just the sports genre, but television in general.
I hope so. I hope so. When I started off as in the print, we always said the more sordid the front pages become, the more inspiring the back pages seem. There are, of course, no front pages and back pages anymore. In general, the more sordid the events in public life become, the more inspiring the events in sport become. I mean, you would otherwise never have heard the story of T. Natarajan, for example. It's a beautiful story, and sport has given him a passport to things he could not have imagined. You'll never see comebacks that Rahul Tewati have produced for Rajasthan Royals. The game is completely gone. There's so much to enjoy, and that is what sport is now doing. And I hope it continues doing that, because we need these bright sparks in our life, and sport will continue to provide that. So I think every time you fear bad news, sport actually emerges stronger. And the IPL is like that. 2009, when the IPL had to go to South Africa at short notice, it emerged as a more powerful global brand. This year, you're thinking, how will the IPL ever happen? Should it happen? It's not just as a more powerful brand, but also as a bigger feel-good brand. And yeah, the feel-good brand. It's entered people's hearts more than it had before.
Harsha, you've just mentioned to unpalatable content that we people have been subjected to. I know you've spoken to me in the past and expressed great dismay about the way several news channels were covering the news of the day and what they were doing. Do you think when you hear people like Rajiv Bajaj say that I'm not putting my advertising money into channels that I believe are doing a disservice to society, do you think we should hear more of that? Do you think brands should do more of that? Where are you on this?
Anuradha, you understand brands and marketing people better than I do. I spent very, very little time in advertising at the very start of my career. But what I do understand is brands must do what is right for them within the ethical framework they set for themselves. And I hope every brand has that ethical framework that it sets for itself. What that framework is, we cannot determine. That is what the guardians of every brand must determine. What I do understand is the television that I learned. I've been extraordinarily fortunate to have been in sport, which is an uplifting phenomenon. But what we always learned was that it's a privilege to enter people's houses, that people are like giving you a visa to enter their house. And so when you go to visit people, you talk to them with a certain respect. Even if the respect is coming out of disagreement, you can disagree. But you behave a certain way. The second thing I learned in television, and something that's been very dear to me, is that and credibility takes years to build and a day to lose. And the moment you lose credibility and trust, then either life becomes impossible or life becomes too easy. Because then you're not bound by the need to be credible or trustworthy. So I'm not saying what other people should be doing. I'm saying this is the television as I understood it, and television I have tried to do myself. Each of us has to choose to live life the way we want to.
You do have very strong association with brands who've reached out to you over the years. Even now, I think you're doing something with Amazon and Alexa. You're doing something with Unacademy. So there are so many associations that you have. Would it be right? How would you react if I describe you as the original influencer? Way before social media made that word popular.
I don't. There have been far, far bigger influencers, Anuradha. I'm just pleasantly surprised at the reach that platforms like Twitter has allowed me. Yes, there's been more in recent times. There's been a little more interest from brands than ever, and I think that puts a lot of responsibility on people before they disassociate with brands. I mean, I know there's now a law in place for brand endorsers, but I think if you try and stick to your parameters of trust and credibility and not do anything that makes you less credible, then I think you'll be all right. But yeah, it's interesting. There's been a lot of interest from brands, and I think we're moving away from mass advertising to spokesman-driven advertising. Whether that's always good or no, I don't know, because we are like, it's just after the traffic light when all the cars and bikes take off and you're in turbulent flow. It takes a little bit of time to reach laminar flow. I think we are about, I don't know where it's going to go, but I think each one of us who has a decent sized social media following, individuals are now media houses. Earlier, we were individuals, you were media houses, you told us and we listened. Now, especially with WhatsApp, but also on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter, well, there's no TikTok now, on other issues, we are disseminators of information and news. So every single individual who has an account has to be aware that he or she is now a disseminator of information and has to have the same degree of rigor that we associated with a newspaper editor or a news channel.
Harsha, we're living in a time where we see immediate reaction and sometimes a backlash and negative reaction to things we say and do on social media, which is also so useful to each one of us. How do you deal with it as a commentator? Because you've been on the receiving end. Your colleagues in the commentary box, like Sanjay Manjrekar, has been on the receiving end. Fans and fan followings of cricketers have hit out when they don't like things you've said.
I'll break that into two. Some of the social media first, on reactions from social media. One of the things being active on social media teaches you is to have a thick skin and to realize who are people who mean well and who are people who seek to injure you or harm you by existing under anonymity. It's like hiding behind a tree and stones at people. So once you've got the thick skin, the armor on you, you learn not to get affected by those at all. These are sad people who are trying to hurt. Able to hurt somebody else is inherently a sad person. So you stop worrying about those people. And that's something that all of us learn at different stages in our career. I learned, it took me a little bit of time. I've learned. I've now got thick skin. I don't worry about that side to it. Should people react to what people on social media are saying? I think the answer is no. It's a game and no, simply because broadcasters must say, this is what I think is right. This is within my framework of broadcasting. If it's going out, that's fine. Unless, of course, there's a particular person, and I haven't seen that person yet, who's just putting off a lot of viewers because essentially you've got appeal to view. Those are minor issues. Essentially, our role in a commentary box is to relate to the action, what's happening there, and I'm doing this because that is the frame we see on our screens as well, and tell people what is happening, why it is happening, how it could have happened better, and why people didn't do what they could have done. Even there are different roles for different people in the commentary box. And I see myself as being part of that role of taking a story out and making it as interesting as possible. Within that, if people say nice things about you, they disagree with you, it's a part of life. No, there will always be people who criticize you. There'll always be people who like you. I've been extraordinarily lucky.
Yeah, but do you also keep in mind the organization that you are on contract with? So in this case, the BCCI.
It is true of just about everybody. Now imagine working for Hindustan Unilever and Fair and Lovely has become Glow and Lovely. Your job is as a sales executive to go out in tip, or your job as a corporate relations executive or an HR executive is to live within the parameters of the company that you're working for at that time. So you can't expect from working for Levers in a professional capacity to stand up and say, I don't like Fair and Lovely, I like Glow and Lovely better, or I don't like Glow and Lovely, or we should restrict ourselves, or we should only stay with Surf. Because they're doing that role. You on CNBC will also, for example, you might have very strong personal views about people, but on the CNBC platform, you're representing CNBC. So you'll find that my views on social media are slightly different from my role in a commentary box. I mean, I've not been assigned, but I see my role in a commentary box as making the game as interesting to people as possible. On Twitter, it's my personal platform. I tend to be a little bit different.
Sure. Are you missing Sanjay Manjrekar?
He's been someone I've known for 22 years. I respect his ability to read a game enormously. And I'm looking forward. We will work together again.
You had told me several years ago that you may be the last cricketer commentator in that commentary box. And when I see commentators today, it's so interesting to see people's names and their country and the years for which they played, right? They wore the national cap. Do you still stay by that? Do you still stand by that? Do you see yourself as the last non-cricket playing commentator in the commentary box?
I hope not. I hope not. That could well be the case. I sit with people in the commentary box, and sometimes I look at an Ian Bishop, and I'm doing commentary with Ian Bishop. Oops, he saw that. And the reason he saw that was because he had been running into bowl there. So there is a definite advantage if you played the game. But it depends on who you are reaching out to. There's a lot of people who don't understand the game very well, but who want to follow it for the sheer emotion, sheer excitement. I think that role cannot go away. So I've said this for the last 15 years, Anuradha. If you've been an international player, you understand the intricacies of the game, but you can relate to people and relate to their emotion as well. If you can understand what that person in a suburb of Chennai feeling when his team is struggling and when his revered Tala is struggling, then you can relate to, then you can become a better broadcaster. As a player, then you're unmatched. But there are people who relate to the game and there are people who relate to the people. And I think that distinction will always exist. So I hope I'm not the last, because there have to be, as I said, thousands of people more talented, more gifted, and they have to find an outlet. But what can happen more and more, which is what we are seeing on CricBuzz. What we are seeing on CricBuzz is the arrival of almost like a summarizer, like Joy Bhattacharya, who has become like a sleeper hit. You talk in movies of sleeper hits. People who are movies that were not expected to become hits. He's become a sleeper hit on CricBuzz simply because he's talking about cricket interestingly. Someone like him would never get a break on live television. So what digital is going to do slowly is it is going to bring about these summarizers who would never break on live television, but they will now start to become influencers, analysts, storytellers on their own platforms. And that's what excites me enormously.
Well, Harsha, stay excited. We wish you a very, very long innings in that commentary box, because you've got people a lot of joy and a lot of entertainment and a lot of learning. So good luck. Thank you for joining us. And you want to just take one last question. If you were a betting man, you would say the IPL 13th edition would be won by, at this stage of the tournament?
Anuradha, if you use that word in the context of a cricket match, we'd all be blowing up. So who do I think is going to win? There's two teams that are moved away from the others, Mumbai and Delhi. But once you get into a knockout situation, because the purse is predefined, every team has match winners in it. So when it comes to the big day, you cannot predict. But at the moment, it's looking like Mumbai Indians and Delhi Capitals, especially Mumbai Indians, have got more bases covered.
Okay, Harsha, thank you as usual. It's always a pleasure. Thank you. We wish you great good luck. Catch you when you're back in India.
Thank you. Thank you, Anil.